with your hosts, Jack Murphy and David Park.
The world is your plate. You could do whatever you want once you're successful there in Ranger Battalion.
So what was that point in Ranger Battalion that you decided you wanted to make the jump and go down to Fort Bragg? Like, when did that kind of coalesce in your mind and make you want to go to selection?
So I had just got picked up for E7. So I was an E6 promotable. And my plan was to take, because at this point I had moved to HHC and I was the TOC 1 commander. So I was Colonel Votel. He decided he wasn't going to retire. And I'm literally like, oh my gosh, I got to find a job. And I really did not want to leave Savannah. Absolutely loved it. My wife loved it. It was a great place to be. So I had to find a job. And I didn't want to go to any other Ranger battalion. I mean, didn't really want to go to 375 or HHC. Just I didn't want to go to Benning. And after living in Savannah for almost 7 years, I'm like, I am not going to Washington State.
Right.
I'm like, it rains all the time there. Like, that is not my weather. No way. So I had met the unit signal sergeant major at a JRX less than 6 months or so before all this happened. And he invited me to come up and try out, and be a signal guy up there. So I still had his card. I gave him a call and said, hey, does that offer still stand? He's like, yeah, love to have you come up here, try out. Love to have you as one of our communicators. And he said, I ask you one question first. He said, have you ever thought about being an operator? And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I would thought about it. I'd love to do it. I didn't, honestly, totally honest, I didn't think I could make it. Being a support guy, growing up as a support guy in Ranger Battalion, you are looked down upon. You're not an 11 Bravo. So, morale wasn't all that high. I mean, I was great at my job, no issues. I could always make comms or know why I didn't, and I was going to fix it. I mean, I took my job very seriously and was very good at it. But in the back of my mind, I really didn't know if I could make it. But he asked me that, and I said, yeah, I have thought about it. And he says, do me a favor, just go to selection first. He says, if you don't make it, we'll take you in a heartbeat. I said, all right, well, let me give this a shot. So I did. Took me twice. But, once I got there and made it quite a ways through, I'm like, yeah, this is for me. Like, this is what I want to do. I was so driven. I got injured, ended up coming back, and probably should have waited a full year till I went back, but I was like, nah, I think I can do this. So I took the time, I healed, and got right back at it and went right back to the next class and made it. And yeah, it was, I'm grateful for, my brother-in-law for sending me on my path originally. And then very grateful for that signal sergeant major to just ask me that question, and the reason that he did, I mean, it totally makes sense, because what he didn't want to have happen, because this does happen, is, a support guy gets there, a direct support guy gets there, and you see that shiny little light, right? You see what the operators are doing, and nobody can stop you from going to selection. So he didn't want to waste a lot of time and effort and money training me up to be a great communicator there. And then I say, hey, I'm going to selection, and he loses me. So, it's for his benefit, but I'm grateful that he gave me that advice or asked me that question. And I'm, I took the path I did because I enjoyed it. I spent 14 years there in the unit before I retired, and it was busy because I got there in November of 2000, and 9/11 happened right after that. But it was busy, but it was fun.
I imagine that the direct support folks, the commo guys, they have their own sort of training and whatnot, right? It's not just you just show up and then you're there and you're part of the group.
Correct. So they go through a different selection. There's kind of multiple selections to get there, but they go through a different selection. Operators have their own, and of course, they're invited because they are the best at their job. There's, not just, oh, hey, I'm a medic, I want to go try it. It's like, no, you got to be good at your job. You got to kind of be invited to come up there, but you'll go through a selection, and then you get there, and you're doing a lot of, especially the medics. I mean, the medics are doing, a ton of medical training. Even as an operator, we did a lot of medical training. But the medics, unbelievable. I mean, most of them leave there and they're nearly qualified to be a doctor. Doesn't take much more schooling, and and there's a few that have taken that path. But yeah, it's a little different for those guys. And they do a lot of extensive training, but then their goal is to get to a squadron. So that is the job. I mean, they still, when they get there, they have to do their kind of headquarters time, and they have to prove themselves. Then they earn a slot to OTC. They go through with all of the operators that are coming through from selection. And then once they make it through that, then they get assigned to a squadron and deploy right with you, alongside you.
Yeah, that's impressive. So when you kind of went your first time, you sort of having these maybe doubts about yourself or your ability to do it. Even though you got injured, you said that like you realized that you could do it. When was that point that you were like, oh, you know what? I've got this.
It was probably about halfway through. Once you get there, anything that's new, you're kind of like, okay, trying to feel things out, what's going on. But once I got about halfway through and started seeing, and the way that it's hard to compare yourself to others that are going through, just because it's a individual process. But you can tell some, and I knew that I could do it. And then the interaction that you have with the other operators, because it is completely run by operators. And that makes it special in itself. But seeing some of those guys, and just looking at them, and it's, you put those guys on this pedestal, and the guys that I've seen, when I was in Ranger Battalion and we worked with, you always just looked at as, oh my gosh, these guys are gods, right? But then when I was there in selection and they were the cadre, I'm like, man, these guys are just like me. Like, there's no difference. I didn't feel like, yes, they were great. They had already done it. They were very successful in what they did and their jobs and everything. I'm not demeaning any of that, but I really just felt like, they're just dudes,
right. They're human.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. It's like, I can do this, and that's sort of where it flipped the switch for me. And, I just continued to drive on. But like I said, the first time I just, I kind of peaked out too early. And I did, I trained up prior to, which most guys do. You want to be in great shape when you get there. And I overtrained the first time I went, and just peaked too early. And yeah, as it got closer to the end, I had nothing left. I mean, I kept on trucking as fast as I could, but I knew I was not going to meet time standards, and, just waiting on them to pull me. But yeah, they said, hey, we appreciate, I didn't quit. Yeah. So they're like, hey, appreciate that you didn't quit. You got an invite to come back. I'm like, I'm coming back. I will be back.
Yeah.
But it was a good time.
So you get through the second time, make it through OTC, arrive at the unit. I mean, ostensibly now you're living the life. You're living the dream. But then, of course, something happens in September that year. Could you walk us through that sort of interesting time frame?